Good morning, Sitam Thika Town. Karibuni sana, welcome to our morning devotions. My name is Rose Salwa. By the grace of God, I serve here as one of the pastors and I am grateful. Sitam Thika Town is a blessed environment. It's a good church. I call it the land flowing with milk and honey. That is my confession for this land. Now, in our morning devotion today, allow me to talk about memories or a remembrance. If you are watching us online and probably you've never been to Sitam Thika Town, or you've not been to Thika, or you've never used Thika Road, or if you have used, as you use Thika Road and you're coming to church or you're going to Thika Town or anywhere, but you have to use Thika Road. On the road, in a place, they tell me it's called Rosters. On that place, the reason I say they tell me it's because I am new on this side of town. There's usually a car that is probably it was involved in an accident and it is put on the road. It's a written off vehicle somewhere on the road. And so I used to pass, I kept on passing on Thika Road when I was basically new, and I would wonder, what is this image doing here? What I mean, NTSA, why did they choose to put this image on this road? And then one time, a friend of mine that I was riding with in the vehicle told me that this vehicle is there to remind people to watch their speed. Of course, Thika Road is a super highway and people can really drive with a lot of speed. So that vehicle is there to remind people that speed kills. Speed kills. So it serves as a remembrance that even as you're allowed to drive over 110 or at 110, please remember that speed kills. Now, this reminds me of a story in the Bible that is in Joshua chapter 4, and the entire chapter. And the story here is about Joshua and the children of Israel. And they had come to a point, you remember, and of course, probably you know the story of the children of Israel and how they had walked with God, and how Moses was sent of God to walk with them and deliver them from Egypt and taking them to the promised land. But then it got to a point where now Moses' turn was done, his term was done, or his assignment was done, and he rested with the Lord. But before then, Moses was asked to hand over to Joshua, who was one of his companions. And God had promised Joshua that do not be afraid, come, I will be with you. And God had told Joshua that the same way I was with Moses, so will I be with you. And Joshua was confident and he knew that actually God was with him. And the same way that God was with Moses, one of the things that happened is when the children of Israel were on their way, they got to the Red Sea. And the Red Sea was a barrier stood between them and between them in Egypt, on their way to Egypt, going to the promised land. You know, it's something that stood in between them, and they looked like they were hopeless, and at some point they were almost beginning to murmur. But then Moses turned to God and asked God, what do I do? And God told him, lift up your staff on the waters, and the Red Sea divided into two, and they went through it. They crossed over to the other side. And by the time they are doing this, the chariots of the Egypt are running over them, because Pharaoh had actually realized, why did I release these people? I need them back to come and work. So when the Red Sea parted into, they passed on dry land and they crossed over to the other side. And when the Egyptians tried to pursue them, they were actually swept and they were wiped and they died. When they crossed over to the other side, then as Joshua now is with them and Joshua is the leader, they came to river Jordan, and Jordan was another Red Sea. They needed to cross over to the other side, but this time with Joshua. But then Joshua is given a certain instruction by God, and he's told, choose 12 men from each tribe of Israel and ask them, all of them, because I'm going to, they will cross over Jordan. Ask them, each of them, to pick at least a stone. One stone, 12 representatives. And so they picked, each and every one of them picked a stone from the Jordan dry land. Now, this is the interesting part. They were told that when you pick that stone, you cross over to the other side. When you cross over to the other side, then what happens is put those stones, that is in Joshua chapter 4, put them together. And they saw that in chapter, in actually verse 6, the Bible says, to serve as a sign among you in the future when your children ask, what do these stones mean? So they were picking the 12 stones, God put them together. So those stones were to serve as a remembrance that God parted the river Jordan and they walked on a dry land. You know, so that those stones are supposed to be there as a memory of what God has done in their life, so that when their children ask, then they can be reminded. In our last episode, when I was doing devotion, I talked about living the legacy of faith, living the legacy of faith. And now we are talking about creating a memory for God, putting a remembrance. Is there something in your life or in your family life that you set it apart and you say, this one is a memorial? Probably it's a naming of a child or something, or construction of a house, and saying, this one serves as a memorial. It serves as a remembrance that when my children and great-grandchildren live, they will ask, what does this mean? Then you will say, this serves as a remembrance that the Lord did 1, 2, 3. You see, for the children of Israel, it was the 12 stones. When the children of Israel would ask, or generation that would come after would ask, what do these stones mean? They will be told that God performed a miracle. Would you consider keeping an account of the things, counting your blessings and naming them one by one, of the things that the Lord has done for you, has done for your family, has done for your children, how He provided? Can you keep on telling the story of God, testifying about God to your family and to your children, so that as they grow, they know the God of my father, the God of my great-grandfather, the God of my uncle, then this is the God I want. Why? Because they have a remembrance, they have a history of what God did in the past and continue to do. Have a blessed day as you go on with your daily activities. God bless you. See you again.